Right now in the Red Sea, inside the Combat Information Center of the USS Carney, the air conditioning hums, but Commander Jeremy Robertson is sweating. He's staring at a mathematical nightmare. On his radar screen, 20 red dots are closing fast. These aren't cruise missiles or fighter jets. They are cheap, plastic drones, like flying lawnmowers, likely built in an Iranian garage. Each one costs the Houthi rebels about $20,000, roughly the price of a Honda Civic. To stop them, Robertson cannot use bullets. He must use miracles. He has to fire SM-6 interceptors, each missile costing a staggering $4, $3 million. Let's run the numbers. 20 drones represent a $400,000 attack. To defend his ship, he must fire 20 interceptors, totaling $86 million in defensive fire. In a flash of light, the annual tax contribution of 5,000 American families disappears into the night sky. For every dollar the enemy spends on an attack, American taxpayers must spend $215 to defend. That is a bankrupt strategy. No nation on Earth can afford to win that way. The enemy isn't trying to sink the destroyer, they're trying to bleed it dry, flooding the zone with cheap garbage, forcing the US Navy to burn through a finite supply of diamonds. It looks like checkmate, but critics don't know what's been happening in classified Pentagon labs for the past 5 years. While Robertson holds the line at sea, a woman in Washington, D.C. saw this nightmare coming long ago. Vice Admiral Seiko Okano, the brilliant mind behind integrated warfare systems, decided to stop playing the dollar game. She switched the currency to pennies. Welcome to Strategic Horizon, where we explore the cutting edge of military innovation and global strategy. Today, we're breaking down 3 revolutionary weapons that cost less than a burger to fire, how they save enough money to rebuild entire communities back home, and why, by 2026, the question won't be whether America can afford to defend itself, but whether the enemy can afford to attack. Let's start with the word that scares destroyer captains more than torpedo: Winchester. Commander Robertson knows that word intimately. Naval aviators borrowed it from Air Force fighter pilots. It's the radio call that means your guns are empty, your missiles are gone, you're out of ammunition. For a destroyer captain, hearing Winchester doesn't just mean the fight is over. It means abandoning your post due to one brutal physical reality: the Vertical Launch System, VLS. On an Arleigh-Burke-class destroyer holds exactly 96 missiles, not 97, not 100. Each cell is a concrete tube 7, 6 meters deep, built into the ship structure during construction. You can't add more cells. You can't 3D print missiles at sea. You can't bolt on extra tubes when a swarm hits. Once those 96 cells are empty, a $2 billion warship becomes a $2 billion paperweight. The USS Carney understands this math intimately. During Robertson's 2023 to 2024 deployment to the Red Sea, the ship faced over 50 separate Houthi attacks, involving drones, anti-ship missiles, and coordinated swarms. The crew fired more than 40 interceptors, defending themselves and nearby commercial shipping. 40 missiles gone, 56 remaining, barely half the magazine. Robertson feels sweat trickle down his temple in the air-conditioned Combat Information Center. Every time he authorizes another launch, the countdown continues. 55 left, 54, 53. Here's what keeps destroyer commanders awake at night. When the VLS runs low, there's only one option: disengage from the battle group, steam to a friendly port, wait for a crane, wait for a supply ship, wait for specialized teams to reload each tube one by one. The process takes weeks. Picture Robertson's dilemma: 20 red dots on the radar, each a potential threat. Fire too many interceptors now and risk Winchester before relief arrives. Fire too few and risk a leaker penetrating defenses and hitting a civilian tanker. Or worse, hitting the aircraft carrier he's supposed to protect. The stress is paralyzing. Every launch is a tactical decision and a logistical nightmare wrapped into one impossible choice. Veteran destroyer commanders have described it as playing poker when you can see the enemy's cards, but your chips are running out. You know what's coming, you just don't know if you have enough bullets to stop it. For decades, this was the iron law of naval warfare. Finite magazine, finite protection, run dry, go home. But 3 years earlier, in a Pentagon briefing room, Vice Admiral Okano was already solving Robertson's nightmare. Her first move wasn't a weapon, but a logistic solution, the transferable reaming mechanism, or TRAM. It was engineering grit at its finest. To Okano, the challenge wasn't just logistical, it was a physics nightmare. She often described the problem to her engineers with a brutal analogy. It is like trying to thread a needle while riding a roller coaster. Now, imagine that needle is a 2-ton explosive missile and the roller coaster is a destroyer pitching in 3-meter waves. That's TRAM. Here's how it works. A supply ship pulls alongside the destroyer while both vessels are underway at sea, moving at 15 knots and rolling in ocean swells. A specialized crane extends from the supply ship across the gap between the hulls. Missiles transfer directly from the supply ship's hold into the destroyer's VLS cells, cell by cell, tube by tube. No port, no pier, no crane infrastructure, just 2 ships moving together in the middle of the ocean, rearming while the battle group continues its mission. The first time Robertson watched the TRAM reload, he stood on the bridge wing as a 13,600 kg SM-6 swung across open water on a cable. The ships rose and fell on different wave cycles. The crane operator had to time the release perfectly. 1 second too early, the missile crashes into the deck. 1 second too late, it swings back and collides with the supply ship, truly threading a needle on a roller coaster. But it worked. The missile slid into the VLS cell. Lock engaged. The crane swung back for the next round. The destroyer that fired 40 missiles yesterday can reload 40 missiles today without breaking formation, without abandoning station, without leaving the carrier group exposed. For the first time in naval history, Winchester doesn't mean retreat. TRAM eliminates the weeks-long port return, it keeps ships in the fight. But back in Washington, Okano knew TRAM wasn't enough. She stood in front of a cost projection slide that made admirals wince. Even with at-sea rearming, the economics still favored the enemy. A destroyer could reload faster, stay in the fight longer, but every engagement still burned millions of dollars to stop thousands of dollars worth of threats. She looked at the cost projection slides and realized the uncomfortable truth everyone else was ignoring. TRAM solved the movement problem, but it didn't solve the money problem. In her view, the Navy was essentially using a crane to reload gold bars just to throw them at garbage cans. TRAM solved the logistics problem. It didn't solve the cost problem. That required changing the ammunition itself. Okano had been working on that solution for 3 years. Robertson didn't have the luxury of this technology on the corner. He had to fight the hard way, with grit, limited ammo and high stress. But 8,000 meters away, in the Pacific, on the USS Pele, the Navy is proving the weapon Robertson wished he had. The weapons officer on the Pele sits at an upgraded console. His screen shows a different solution. A button labeled HELIOS, high energy laser with integrated optical dazzler and surveillance. He's trained on his system for 6 months under Okano's accelerated deployment program, but he's never fired it in combat until now. His finger hovers over the button, he presses it. Hollywood lied to you. Real lasers are scary because they are boring. No muzzle flash, no recoil, no smoke, no tracer rounds arcing toward the enemy. Just invisible infrared light focused into a beam narrower than a pencil, traveling at 186,000 meters per second. The drone never sees it coming. The Houthi operator watching his video feed never gets a warning. The targeting computer locks the laser onto the drone's center mass. Helios fires. A 60 kilowatt beam converges on a spot smaller than a quarter. In less than 1 second, that spot heats to over 1093 degrees Celsius. Plastic melts, carbon fiber softens, aluminum begins to glow, the drone's sensor dome, made of cheap acrylic, cracks from thermal stress, the camera lens inside warps, light-sensitive chips overheat and short-circuit. Within 3 seconds, the drone is functionally blind. But Helios doesn't stop there. The beam stays locked on target. 4 seconds. 5. The drone's cheap plastic propeller blades start to deform from the heat. 6 seconds. The motor housing begins to melt. 7 seconds. Control surfaces warp. The drone doesn't explode. There's no fireball, no debris cloud. It simply stops responding to commands. The propeller keeps spinning for a moment, driven by momentum. Then the drone noses down, pitches forward, and falls like a bird with clipped wings, tumbling toward the ocean below. The weapons officer watches it drop on his infrared camera. No missile contrail streaking behind it. No explosion on water impact, just a small splash in the dark sea. The diesel fuel burned to generate that 7-second laser shot cost 87 cents. Back in Washington, Vice Admiral Okano watches real-time feeds from the USS Pele. This is the validation of 5 years of her career. Every HELIOS engagement saves $4, 3 million, compared to an SM-6 intercept. She thinks about what that money means, not in Pentagon budget terms, but in American lives. One laser shot saves enough to build an elementary school in Ohio. 10 engagements fund a fully equipped cancer research laboratory. That's not just a cost saving, that's choosing schools over sinking metal into the Red Sea. This isn't just a weapon, it's an economic shield. Thousands of kilometers away on the Carney, Robertson is still fighting the old way. He doesn't know help is coming, but Okano does. On the Pele screen, another red dot appears on the tactical display. The weapons officer rotates the targeting reticle, locks on, fires again, another drone falls. This is what unlimited ammunition feels like. But there's a problem with HELIOS that no amount of fuel can solve. It engages one target at a time. Lock, fire, burn, move to the next target. Against 10 drones spread across the sky, HELIOS can handle them methodically, but against 50 drones converging in a coordinated swarm, all arriving simultaneously, the math gets dangerous. Robertson steps onto the bridge wing, binoculars pressed to his face. 53 red dots on the radar. Not 15, not 20, but 53. All inbound. In 2024, this site would be a death sentence. But let's fast forward to 2026. Let's give Robertson the upgrade he deserves on this destroyer of the future. The captain has a final card to play. Robertson keys his radio. Weapons, bridge. Authorize METEOR. There's a pause. The weapons officer's voice comes back. Sir, METEOR is still experimental. Noted. Fire when ready. This is Okano's final gift to the fleet, Project METEOR High-Power Microwave. In our 2026 scenario, this is the weapon that changes everything. And Robertson is about to find out if Okano's gamble pays off. If HELIOS is a sniper rifle, METEOR is a shotgun, a very large, very angry shotgun pointed at the sky, instead of a focused laser beam burning one target. METEOR broadcasts a wide cone of electromagnetic radiation, invisible, silent, sweeping across a 60-degree arc of sky. Deep in the ship, 4 massive Rolls-Royce gas turbines scream to life. The sound reverberates through the hull, a mechanical howl that drowns out every other noise. They aren't turning the propellers, they're dumping raw electrical power into massive capacitor banks. 12 megawatts, enough energy to power a city block, now compressed into a single millisecond. The generators surge to maximum output. Deck lights flicker. The entire ship vibrates from the energy draw. Every sailor feels it in their bones. METEOR fires. Nothing visible happens. No flash, no beam, no tracer. The ocean looks the same. The sky looks the same. But 24 kilometers away, inside 53 Houthi drones, everything electronic just died. Here's what happened. In the span of 1 second, the microwave pulse swept across the formation like an invisible wall. The radiation penetrated the drone's plastic and aluminum skin as if it wasn't there. Inside each drone, the electromagnetic energy induced electrical currents in every circuit, every wire, every trace on every circuit board. Voltage spiked, transistors fried, capacitors exploded in tiny pops, microprocessors cooked from the inside, GPS receivers went dark, guidance computers crashed, power regulators burned out, camera feeds froze, radio transmitters went silent. In Yemen, in a bunker 500 meters south, 53 control screens went black simultaneously. The operators frantically tried to re-establish connection. Nothing. They check their equipment, their radios work fine, their computers are functioning, but every single drone just vanished from their displays. Back in the Red Sea, Robertson watches through his binoculars. The drones don't fall in unison. Some continue on inertial heading for a few seconds before veering off course. Some tumble immediately. Some spiral slowly, like cutting the strings of 53 puppets. They drift apart and fall. Within 30 seconds, 53 small splashes appear across a 2-meter radius. Robertson takes a breath. The radar is clear. the silence returns to the CIC. For the first time in history, a US warship just defeated a mass swarm without firing a single bullet. So, how does the US Navy win when every defensive shot costs 200 times more than the enemy's weapon? The simple answer: America stopped playing their game. The enemy built a strategy around ammunition economics, cheap drones versus expensive missiles, to force America to burn dollars while they burn pennies, to deplete the magazine, and force a retreat. But America didn't build better ammunition, we built weapons that don't use ammunition. TRAM keeps ships in the fight. HELIOS burns targets for the price of a coffee. METEOR sweeps the sky for the cost of running the generators. And all of it runs on electricity from engines that were already turning anyway. The enemy counted on Winchester. They counted on finite magazines and weeks-long port returns. What they didn't count on was Vice Admiral Locano asking a different question 5 years ago. Not, how do we make cheaper missiles, but how do we stop using missiles altogether? By 2026, the question won't be whether America can afford to defend itself. It will be whether the enemy can afford to attack us. Because we have infinite ammunition and they don't have infinite drones. By 2027, every new destroyer leaves the shipyard with HELIOS already installed. By 2028, the Navy's directed energy roadmap includes weapons we haven't even announced yet. Railguns, solid-state lasers, systems that make METEOR look like a prototype. That destroyer in the Red Sea in the very near future, commanders like Robertson won't count VLS cells before authorizing engagement anymore. The weapons officer won't hesitate when the radar lights up. They will fire. The threats will fall. The magazine will stay full. The mission continues. And back home, the money we're not burning in the Red Sea builds the schools, funds the hospitals, and advances the research that makes America stronger. The enemy thought cheap drones would bankrupt American defense. They thought economics would beat firepower. They forgot one critical variable. American engineers don't accept the premise of the question. We don't optimize within constraints. We eliminate the constraints entirely. The future of naval warfare isn't about who has more bullets. It's about who stopped needing bullets in the first place.